All right, so we are currently live, and you know the deal. Whenever you see Papa Goat coming live, what do? You stop scrolling. So if you're on Facebook, this is you stop scrolling right now because we're talking about something very important, which is mental health today. And if you're on YouTube, well, there's no scrolling on YouTube, so you're just gonna watch this video. So today we have a very special guest, and I'm not gonna introduce myself because everybody know who I am. But we doing this show primarily to bring awareness to a lot of things that's going on in the community. So whether it's business, whether it's whatever it could be, as long as somebody need to hear this information, my job is to bring you the content so you can be aware. So today, the very special guest we have, let me give you a quick story. I was actually doing my very first video to for my show. So as I'm sharing the video, and I was testing things out, and I said one thing. I said the first 10 people I get to interview and the show is gonna be very special to me. And my wife and I, we trying to find a way to say thank you. That makes sense. So I know the top 10 people would be very, very important to us. And then she messaged me and said, hey, I don't know if I'm part of the top 10, but hopefully I am. I would love to be interviewed on your show. And I'm like, holy moly. But she is part of the top 10. She just didn't know until recently. But anyway, I'm very, very excited to have a licensed mental health counselor, Ishmel. And, before we get into the nitty gritty, if you're watching this, if you're driving, please drive safe. But if you're home, take a piece of paper and take note. Write some stuff down. Use the comment box. So even though we're not gonna go through questions right now, but as we going through, when the show is over, if you have question, put it down there and you on Facebook. So maybe Ish would have some time, from her busy schedule to actually connect with you. But one thing, mental health is big, and that's why I bring her in. So anyway, without further ado, welcome to the show. And I'm telling everybody right now, this is not your last time being on the show. You're going to keep coming back because it is so needed in our community to be aware of what's going on. So thank you for being part of the show tonight. So please tell us a little bit about you and about your field.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Foremost, thank you for developing this opportunity in this platform for myself as a mental health counselor, as well as other business owners, entrepreneurs, to speak about what they do, how they can impact the community. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So a little bit about myself. As you mentioned, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. My practice is in Winter Park. The name of my practice is Essential Life Counseling and Family Services. I offer couples, marital problems, teens, adolescents, individual counseling, parenting, anger management skills. So when you talk about, I know we briefly talked about how did I get here, what made me become where I am today. My story is very interesting. So my undergrad is actually in business. And
Really?
marketing. Yes, yes. So I thought that I would be this brand manager, the CEO, advertising. So that didn't happen.
It's
As
good
you
where you are, though, by the way.
Yes, I'm all right. But I think what really did happen was the 2008 crash. I had a job in Miami. I was doing very well, and then the 2008 real estate, housing market, everything crashed. The businesses crashed. So I didn't know what to do. And I tried nursing. It was not for me. Can't do the blood thing. I just cannot gravitate on the human body. I cannot do it. Anatomy beat me up. I was like, this ain't for me. And then I decided to go into teaching, in which I did my teaching certificate, and I started by subbing. So I was subbing in elementary, middle school, high school, and I find my niche to be more high school students. And so as I was subbing, I had a lot of students come to me, talk about their problems, talk about their traumas, and they would just gravitate to me. They would, I couldn't keep them out of the classroom. They would come during lunch, they would come after school, I'd walk in the car, they'll come talk to me. And so I said, you know what, let me look into a field where I can give back to the community, where I can actually talk to the teams and use some expertise, some knowledge, some skills to help them. So I decided to go into mental health counseling, and it's been 7 years. I love
Wow.
it. I don't feel like I'm working. It is a passion for me. And this is where I am today. So that's my story.
Amazing, amazing, and thank you for sharing it with us. And a lot of us can relate with the situation that happened in 2008. And hey,
Mhm.
listen, and you may be watching this. You're like, 2008. I was 4 years old. We're not talking to you, okay? I feel like every time we talk about like years past, I'm like, I feel like I'm getting like older and older. But we, a lot of people can relate. Now you end up into mental health, so I've had that conversation a lot, with people. Now, I'm not a licensed professional. That's why we're so excited to have you on the show. Now, what exactly is mental health? Like, what is the definition? What is your definition based on the experience and the actual definition of mental health? From your perspective.
Yeah. So first, we're going to look at the perspective from the World Health Organization 2014 quoted. It is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively, fruitfully, and able to make a contribution to his or her community. All right. This is a mental state that you have, a well-being that you have, that you're able to, have control over, somewhat of a control. It doesn't alter your behavior, it doesn't alter your thought process, it doesn't alter your emotions. But as soon as it alters your emotions, it alters your daily functioning, work, school, personal life, home life, then this is where mental illness can be developed.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting. You
Mhm.
guys get the definition. And so my one of my question I actually had for you is, what are some of the signs people should be looking for, like different signs? Let's just say, I don't know, I'll take an example. And I don't want to derail because I know this is such a broad subject. Let's just say me, I'm Haitian, right? And as you know, if you didn't know, Ish is actually Haitian as well. So hello, you see the flag back there. So represent. Okay, we got our people doing. It's not all about just being nurses and avocat. You know what I'm talking about with my Haitian people, right? We actually have other field that's a lot
We
of
do.
fun. And so now let's just say, for example, I was raised in a Haitian household, and
Mhm.
knowing how Haitian function, and I know you know where I'm going with this. A lot of the time, I can say, based on what I know and a little bit I know about mental health, sometimes we experience some bad, situation with our parents. So my question to you is, if a young man out there, a young woman out there is feeling depressed, feeling anxiety, they experience some signs like they don't even understand themselves, what are some of the measures they should take? Based you being a professional, what would you say to those people, those young people, especially growing up in a household?
So it's so much within that,
Mm-hmm.
because in that household we have to determine the factors of traumas, the factors of, what are they witnessing in the household. Is it domestic violence, anxiety? We know anxiety is genetic. Anxiety is also, due to trauma, fears, isolation. It goes on and on and on. So the first step is what are the warning signs and the self-awareness of those warning signs. Like, okay, this, am I feeling withdrawn? Am I feeling sad? And do I want to harm myself? Am I all of a sudden feeling overwhelming? Am I panicking? Am I losing weight? Am I losing interest? Am I not as active as I used to? Those are signs that, it's interrupting your daily functioning. These signs, these emotions that you're feeling, is interrupting something that you would normally do. So this is where seeking professional help, looking into a mental health professional, so that you can kind of sort things out and figure out what is going on. That way you can be uh, evaluated, or just making sure that you have a proper diagnosis, making sure that you get the coping mechanisms that you need so that you can move on and get the proper care for your mental health.
Interesting. You mentioned getting professional help, and which, by the way, great answer. And like I said earlier, guys, if you have question, put it in a box, and then after the interview, she may get some time to answer you. Now, you mentioned um, professional help. What can you say to somebody who perhaps know they need that help, and especially in our community, they're not comfortable to seek that help? That makes sense. So, meaning, you understand my question, but to somebody who's going through that right now, what would you say to them about, the fear, and they scared what people might say or judge them? So if I'm a young man right now, a young woman, what are some of the things you can say to me that would help me process, that those emotions, so I can really open up to a professional?
Mhm. So I know the first thing is we have the mental health stigma. And the mental health stigma is what society has disapproved, what society tells us is right, what society is telling us is wrong, what we are afraid to ask or seek help in. Um, Part of that is normalization, is normalizing that seeking help is normal. It's not, you're not crazy. I get a lot of times where, when I say I'm a mental health counselor to someone, especially, in the Haitian community, in the Black community as well, Latino community, it's, oh, okay, you deal with crazy people. And I'm like, I haven't met a crazy person yet. I have not met a crazy person yet. And to say that is, we need to remove the stigma. We need to remove the attachment to I am crazy. I need to seek services because I'm crazy. No, it is okay. And I think the more we can normalize it, and the more we can develop more education, definitely, if we can point out more education and teach, hey, this is okay, you're okay, you're not crazy, this is normal, we're human, we have our ups and downs, acute stress happens. There's a lot of triggers when it comes to mental illness. It doesn't have to be traumatic childhood related traumatizations that's linked to mental health. There are acute stress, there are loss of job, there are, homelessness, instant homelessness, there is financial stress. There's just so many things that can bring upon mental illness, or even just, anything that is even an acute form, our mental health, where we need to seek help and just get feedback on what we need to do. And if anything, self-awareness, being self-aware, knowing who you are, so that, when these triggers happen, what do I do when this happen? Okay, if I'm thinking this way, or if I'm doing the same thing over and over again, am I drinking every time I'm angry? Am I drinking every time I'm stressed? What are we doing with our stressors?
Hmm.
What are we doing?
Hmm.
And just and that way we can seek, this is where we seek different coping mechanisms, proper coping mechanisms, so we don't project it, the wrong way.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And which, by the way, this is the first time we're here. I'm just gonna throw different things at you. And next time you come, we're going to have like a specific title so we can
Yes.
actually develop it, because this is a big subject, and it's so well needed in our community, man. And once again, thank you for being here. Now, you mentioned one thing. It's even a loss of job can actually trigger, something in somebody. Now, what we just had happen not too long ago, and which we still experiencing, which is COVID, right? Now, COVID, we all know what's going on out there, right? So
Mhm.
during that time, there are still people that actually, still out of a job. Now, my question is going to be specifically for men's. So imagine now, let's just say I work at ABC company. I have
Mhm.
2 kids. I'm married, the whole 9 yard. So now COVID happened, no more job. So I got laid off. And nowhere I'm looking to, for a job is hiring me. So as a man, let's just say there's a young man out there like me, thank God I'm an entrepreneur. But let's just say a young man out there like me, older man, it doesn't matter, that's going through that, have a wife to take care of, has kids to take care of, have a mortgage. What are some of the things, some of the ways for him to process that so he don't get all freaked out? Because I do have those conversations with people who lost their job, and sometimes they feel traumatized. So what is your input on that?
So in different ways,
Hmm.
I think COVID in itself has built so much anxiety, and anxiety is when we feel there's a threat. We've lost control. There is, I've lost control of this. There's nothing I can do. Start thinking the worst case scenario. I can't get out of this. I'm going to lose everything, and the first step is, when it comes to going back to that situation, is figuring out the support system and the resources. Primary, because these things are going to happen, and we could talk about preparation. I remember I was talking to someone and they were like, we should prep for a rainy day, and that's true. We should prep for a rainy day. You never know what's going to happen, but some people don't have the ability to prep and are living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have the resources. And and when they're in that predicament, what do you do? Well, it is a normal process to be. Here's the thing: I don't want people to feel they can't feel. You can feel angry, you can feel upset, you can feel distraught, because that is an acute stress. That is something that is happening in real time. At the same time, we want to be reactionary, right? And this is why therapy is good, because learning those coping mechanisms, how do you stop? How do you breathe? How do you search for resources? Who do we talk to? Sometimes it is venting. Sometimes I need to be heard. I need to know what my next step is. So I know during that moment there were different resources available. There were things that were, that was coming out of, the loss of jobs. They had the different ways of, handling, not handling, but they had different ways of distributing money during that time. So there were resources available. But I think, once again, normalizing, talking about it, and preparing the mind for these situations really help, during those crises. Now, it's one thing to go through this process and be in panic mode. What we do want to be careful for is crisis. This is where you get so distraught that you either want to, you're feeling suicidal, you feel like it's the end, you feel like you cannot anymore. This is where it gets more than just a thought of, okay, what do I do next? You're contemplating, you're trying to figure out a plan. This is your resources, this is your support. But then you have that, I can't do this anymore. I am, as a man, the provider of this home. And if I can't provide, I don't know why I'm living.
Hmm.
I don't know what's the point of my purpose if I can't. This is where crisis intervention comes through. We do have a great system with 211 United Health that is outstanding, that you can call. There is even 911 that you can call for those crisis interventions, so that you can definitely, that is immediate threat. That is something, immediate danger, that you have to seek services for, because you are at that low point.
Very
Okay.
good.
And if you
Yes.
do feel like that, even if it's not because you lose a job, it could be, I recently posted something about a young man in his early 20s, and he felt betrayed. His girlfriend betrayed him, and he felt suicidal and went through with it. And I heard there was mention that he stated he wanted to do this to himself, but it was not taken seriously within the community. These are the stigmas that we have to steer away from, that we have to be proactive and do something about, because we don't know what people are thinking. We don't know, when they're saying these things, is it true? Is it not true? We have to be proactive and do something.
Gotcha. Which is very, very important. And I'm glad you said that last part, because that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. Imagine you're in an environment where somebody mentions something or say something that you don't feel comfortable with, and you feel like they're going to perhaps hurt themselves. what are some of the ways to actually handle that? And you actually answer that. So another question I have is when you mentioned education. You mentioned education. Now, I have a tweet. I didn't forget Mikey's age. Oh, Jesus, baby. Listen, I have my wallet. I have the age written down. So, babe, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, I have a 7-year-old and I have a 4-year old, soon to turn 5. Or should I say 35? Now, you
Oh,
mentioned
wow.
education, right? So, as a parent, um, what are some of the signs as we are raising kids, we're raising young children? What are some of the signs we should look at ourselves also? So it's gonna be two part of the questions. What are some of the things we can do to make sure we don't stress our kids to a point where they start being in panic mode, where they start feeling suicidal? And the second part of the question is uh, when we as parents see those signs, what are some of the things we should do as parents to make sure we're seeking the proper help and getting the right resources? I don't know if that was too long of a question, but
I think I gathered it all.
okay.
So I'm gonna probably answer it, combine them together and
Hmm.
answer the question. Foremost, as I mentioned, I do parenting, is to know your children. Know your children, and I think as we grew up in a Haitian household, not all, not all, that our parents were either working a lot, we had to do a lot on our own, and we had to figure things out on our own, and emotionally and physically, everything was pretty much we had to do on our own. And time has changed for sure. So I think most importantly, knowing your children, talk to them, teach them emotional regulation. And the way to teach emotional regulation, that, teaching them how to regulate their emotions, is how you regulate your emotions. What happens when you're upset? What happens when you are feeling sad? What happens when you are angry? What happens when, just being mindful of how you regulate your emotions to teach them how to regulate their emotions. A lot of time it's because of dysregulation, not being able to um, process emotions, that they go to anger, that they go to, I just want to kill myself. I don't know what else to do. I have nobody to talk to. I have no support. So just being mindful of who your children are, talk to them, listen to, pay attention to the cues of your kids, because a lot of times if they walk in and they're not saying a word, it's okay to ask, hey, how was your day? Talk about, the feeling, talk about what happened, just being open. And because it's hard to read your child if you don't know them, because you're going to assume how they're feeling. And assumptions always lead to behavior afterwards. You assume something and then you behave based on that assumption. Therefore, you don't check. Therefore, you're not, making sure that you have that dialogue with your child. So a lot of times, first is the communication part and that awareness of your children emotionally. Where are they? And then meeting them there. I think we forget sometimes as parents that we too were children.
That's true.
We were children too. We had emotions. We were bullied. I mean, I was bullied a lot growing up. And, whether it's being Haitian, whether it's, I mean, other things, there was a lot of bullying going on. And, my parents, they did the best that they could. But, these days, because so much is exposed on like suicide, like they have this thing where they were teaching kids how to do it. So it's a different world as well. So we just have to be mindful that we're communicating with our children. We are aware of, where they are emotionally. And if they do become suicidal, don't be afraid to ask them, do you feel like killing yourself right now? I don't know why people, it's just, once again, the stigma. We feel it's not a norm to ask, hey, do you feel like killing yourself? Like, is this what you're thinking? You can ask those questions. And even for children, once again, I'm all about 211 mobile crisis. They're excellent. They're 365, 24 hours a day. So each time that you feel that your child is feeling suicidal, there's a crisis, you can get a therapist for free. to come to your home within Central Florida. I believe it's Osceola, Seminole, and Orange County, that they could come out there and talk to your child. So there's just resources out here. And this is why education is important. Even right now, I'm educating the people, who's listening, what they can do, especially in those situations.
Interesting. And thank you for mentioning that. I didn't know personally that you can get free help. And a lot of people out there, I'm pretty sure, just like I didn't know, they probably don't know. So that's a good thing you say that. So if you do need help, you do have some resources. And um, you mentioned being bullied, and I want to share something with you. And a lot of people don't know that Papa Goat was bullied at school. Okay, Papa Goat was bullied. So let me give you. When I was in middle school, my English was as thick as Drake eyebrows, and
Oh no.
Drake eyebrows is pretty thick. And the only reason I'm using that is because somebody used that in the past, and it's a good analogy. So I didn't speak any English. So one of the things that we should be aware of when somebody come from a different country, and I felt like the Hispanics was treated a little bit better than the Haitians, even though we both had
Mm,
ESOL. ESOL, if you don't know what ESOL is how you learn English when you come from another country. And I remember really being bullied, and I remember being pushed around, in middle school. I remember people making fun of me because I couldn't speak English. So now thinking back about, on that, I remember how I felt.
mm,
And at some point, I felt a little bit suicidal because nobody actually understood me, you know?
mhm,
And I'm not saying my method will help everybody like how what I did, thank God I find books and I start reading and have a different education. And I'm a huge reader. I love reading, and
good.
I find some ways to actually understanding myself a little better. And I know you mentioned that earlier, is know yourself, know who you are, your self-worth. And once I start doing that, start reading books, then my mind starts shifting another route to where
Mm.
now I feel like I'm okay. But hey, listen, even though you feel like you're okay, sometimes you need some help. Even Papa Goat may need some help. He doesn't even know, right? But thank you for sharing that with me. So I know we up on almost 30 minutes on. So write your questions down, and then like I said, Ish will actually jump in when she has some time to help you. And if you want to connect with her, believe me, connect with her, because you may be listening to this and you said, "Oh my God, such and such probably need to hear this." And then you share this video with them. And from there you can get in touch with her, and she's the professional. So now you
Can
mentioned,
I add something? I want to add something about the
please,
bullying real quick.
please, yes.
So it's a little bit about my experience, and as we're talking about this, um, because I was bullied, and I think in general, this happens. It brings upon anxiety. It brings upon a lot of anxiety, social anxiety. It positions yourself and open doors to mental illness when it's not resolved, in children. And then what happens with anxiety is if you do nothing about it, it increases and it worsens. So first you're anxious. My bullying happened a lot at the bus stop. So I remember being at the bus stop and then getting on the bus and just couldn't wait to get to school because I felt a lot safer there. It was the bus stop where a lot of the kids would bully me. So as I got on the bus, it was like, okay, I'm good. I'm safe. But the thing about my experience with anxiety is of course, you brush it off. It's okay. You get older. Is it worsened? It started at the bus stop, and then it goes into the classroom, and then when you're around people, and then it just starts to manifest into other areas. And this is why you want to seek that professional help, and this is why a lot of children now, they are making sure when there's bullying, they say, hey, get some counseling, because they know it's debilitating as they get older. And I've always been a fun, vibrant person, but no one knew that I was very anxious. I was anxious in different, situations. And so I had to have my own self-awareness and understand myself. Why am I having panic attacks? Why am I being so anxious? Why am I driving and I all of a sudden, wait, let me park the car. Where am I? That's just how debilitating it can get. And I had to get my own counseling, my own help. And this is like, I remember being 21 when this happened. And and when I was in college, they was like, you have anxiety. That's what that is. Okay, here, go to counseling. And I was like, oh, that's what this thing is. So a lot of people don't even know what to call it. And then that just lack of control, it just, it succumbs you, and you have to figure out what to do, what to call it. If you don't know what it is, how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? So this is why awareness and education really, really works. And then after that, I could say around 22, 23, I felt better. I had my coping mechanisms and I was able to move forward. But I would say to myself, wow, imagine if during that time in college, I'm having these panic attacks. I was always hard on myself with school. I mean, I've always loved school. But when it was testing time, I had the worst anxiety. Once again, it started at the bus stop. Now it's in all edges of my life because I didn't deal with it properly. I had to develop coping mechanism. I had to understand my triggers. I had to understand the warning signs. And that's where I'm able to be in control, be more competent, and continue on my journey of life. So just to share my story of how debilitating it could get when we do nothing, even from the childhood experience.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. This is great stuff, and I would encourage you, our listeners out there, do the same thing I did. I remember going to the internet and looking at some stories on how there are so many signs that could have saved somebody's life, and it's just too late because the person actually take away their life. There are so many pressure, like so many things that pressure us on a daily basis, where sometimes stress can feel overwhelmed. That makes sense. So there's a reason I have this conversation here is because if this conversation can save one life or can make somebody else better, the job is done. And as you're
Mm-hmm.
watching this, please share this. So I took some time to actually look at some cases that happen in the US, with depression and anxiety, how people take their life, and you can even be going
Mm-hmm.
to a bad breakup. I have so many conversation with peers from my organization where the position I play, I do have a lot of people come to me to explain some stuff, and you know, even just a bad breakup can actually lead into somebody taking their life because of the love and the
Mm-hmm.
emotion. And it's unfortunate most of us don't know how to process that emotion, and
It
then
goes deeper.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I'm gonna go deeper with you. So imagine if you're a person that has experienced abandonment all your life. You have experienced abandonment from your loved ones, whether it's a father, whether it's a mother, whether it's both parents. If you experience a lot of losses, these are traumas.
mm,
So when you gravitate to someone, right, and you trust that they'll be there, and it goes beyond love at that point. It's almost like an obsession. It's almost, I need this person because and this person I'm going to gravitate to, and there's no way this person can leave me
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because everyone has left me. And sometimes these same people are like, you would never leave me, right? So it's like trust again, because a lot of times with abandonment are trust issues. So when you have someone, and these are just examples, I'm sure there's a lot more different things that can contribute to that, but just kind of going back to abandonment, this person being abandoned by that one person, that fiance, that wife, that husband, whoever, it does become the last straw. What's the purpose of living if no one loves me, no one cares about me, and there's a pattern of abandonment? And at that point, this is why self esteem, self worth understanding the process of abandonment, what happens mentally is so important. And I have and I open my doors on that as a therapist, and I speak to my clients on all of these things, because it does take you there. It does take you to, what's the point? What's the point of living if no one cares? And then this is where self-love, this is where that void for themselves, their self-awareness is lacking.
Hmm. That's big. That's big. That's very, very deep. And thank you for touch base on that. And as you were talking, since mental health is so broad, guys, if you want to put in the comment below which subject you want us to touch next, when she have time to pay us another visit, I don't know when. Make sure you put that, because I want to give you what's most important to you. So number
Mhm.
one is to bring awareness, which we are doing right now. Number two is how
Yeah.
can we specify that for you to fit
Mhm.
you or an individual you may know. So make sure you take time to put that in the box below. So now, before we wrap up here, um, my question to you is, if somebody is actually looking to get into your field, what
Mhm.
are some of the challenges they should expect, or what are some of the things they should expect doing that field? Because I want to speak for those people as well who may feel like, hey, this is the career I possibly want to get into. What would you say to those people?
So I can say about my experience, and hopefully, this will help, because I know everyone's going to be different. Remember, I came from a business background. And so I came into this field not knowing anything. I didn't know anything. I, felt like a counselor in a sense of, being, advice. And I thought the field was, I give advice. I tell you what you need to do, and you move on with your life. Wrong.
It's way more than that.
Way more than that, because I don't even, I'm not saying I don't advise, but I provide much more guidance, because this is your journey. This is your journey. My goal is to bring in insight and judgment for behavior change.
Hmm, that's big.
So the biggest thing for someone going into the mental health field is to get as much experience, expose yourself. For me, I started my exposure with community health. I started at a community health center because my goal was I wanted to see every diagnosis that I can see. I wanted to see schizophrenia. I wanted to see OCD. I wanted to see everything. I want to know what it looks like. I wanted to see substance abuse. I wanted to see, bipolar. I wanted to see, all the different stages of mental health, PTSD. I wanted to see all the different diagnoses so that I can have be competent in those areas and learn. Because, we can all read a book and we can all see things and we can all gravitate to, oh, this is what this looked like. Okay, I'm gonna gravitate to this information. And even without being, I see a lot of unlicensed providers. I mean, not providers, people, not providers,
People.
people that they're diagnosing people, they're diagnosing family. And I'm like, this person got bipolar. I mean, did they go get diagnosed? No, I just know it. I just know it. I went on Google. So you want to be very, very careful. So it's a lot more than just reading something and placing a diagnosis and then finding skills, techniques, and counseling techniques to work with that. So it's the education first, and then the experience, having that well-rounded experience, and pace yourself. Pace yourself. My biggest thing was, I could tell you what my biggest fear was. When I got out of school, I was like, Lord, how am I going to baker rack somebody? I don't know about baker racking somebody. I was like, I didn't want to do that. I was so scared. I remember my first case was a kid that said, I want to kill myself. I was like, oh my God, you want to kill yourself? And then I got my supervisor and she's like, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. We're going to ask questions so we can figure out, is there intent, right? Is this the ideation? Is it a thought? There's a plan? So there's so much more that comes with that. It's just not that.
Yes.
So allow yourself to go through that learning process so you can build a competency and become that therapist that you want to be.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, what is the last thing you want to say to our audience here? What do you want them to go with? Let me just say, hey, listen, if you're a woman here, don't just go to your man and say, hey, I got somebody I need you to meet, okay? Like, and I'm my wife probably say, hey, you did this interview, or you're gonna meet with her because, hey, don't do that, okay? There is a baby step, but anyway, that's just me, right? Um, so my question to you is what is the last thing you want the audience to go with, the person who's listening to you right now? What is the last message you want them to go home with?
The last message I would like for the audience to go with is it's okay. Where it's normal to have emotions, it's normal to be in crisis, it's normal to, mental health is just as important as physical health. And don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore if anything that is interrupting your daily functioning, is if there's anything that you feel is causing distress, don't ignore it. I'm gonna leave you with this concept. You know, we are stressed, we go through things, and we brush it off in our minds. Okay.
Hmm.
We feel like we don't think about it. Okay. So we just move forward, we go about our day, and, we do nothing about it. But just remember, what the mind doesn't remember, the body never forgets. This is why your body responds to trauma, anxiety, all those things that come out, whether it's anger or whether it's, all these things,
Hmm.
it's because it's a reaction. And sometimes it's in our unconscious mind where our emotions are buried, our traumas are buried, our stressors are buried, and our body keeps responding to it. That's why when you have anxiety, it responds to your heartbeat, it responds to your hands, it responds to, different parts of your body. Depression responds to your body. So don't ignore the signs, seek professional help. Once again, my name is Ishmel Cerisier. I'm Ishi Noel on Facebook. My business, my private practice is in Winter Park, Florida. It's called Essential Life Counseling and Family Services. You can actually Google my name and you'll see me pop up. And, I am free for any questions. And thank you, James, most importantly, for having me here this evening.
Well, listen, this by far one of the best conversation I have, and I'm not taking it lightly. I want to say thank you for being here. And by the way, if you go to her Facebook page, she nearly have nothing on there. Okay, you would never know she's that icon in the community, but definitely connect with her and connect people you may think that need her help, because this is what we're here to do, to bring awareness. So Ish, one more time, I just want to say thank you for being here, and I hope you guys find this valuable. Show her some love on this video, share this video.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys, bye bye everyone. Bye bye.